Hello, welcome to another edition of Chris Speaks. I'm Christopher Thompson. Um, Today I'm going to talk about this fake controversy with the Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, who is um, uh, she is a woman, of course, and she is Muslim, and she came to this country from Somalia as a refugee when she was a little girl, and so Congress was having a discussion about the Palestinian conflict, and because what goes on now is you're not allowed in this country, you're allowed to criticize your own government, but you're not allowed to criticize the Israeli government, no matter the fact that they're committing genocide upon the Palestinian people or anything. You're just not allowed to. And she mentioned how that um, the Israeli American lobby, APEC, and these other lobbies that lobby for our politicians, they lobby, which they basically give money to bribe politicians to have these basically support Israel and to pass legislation that's pro-Israel to send more aid and whatever to Israel so they can commit more atrocities. And they took all those things that were not anti-Semitic and they totally twisted it around. And so part of the thing was that because of what her position, she was supposed to be on the Foreign Affairs Committee, and she's saying how in order to be on that, she had to sign a freaking loyalty oath to Israel. And so she said that how this country, that there's this lobby, this power that lobbies these people with the Benjamins, which everybody knows in this country, including these Republicans that are using it against her, is that Benjamins is a reference to $100 bills, because Benjamin Franklin was on the $100 bill, and we'll get back to that in a little while. And it said that she shouldn't be in this. What kind of power does the Israeli lobby have, where people are expected to have allegiance for a foreign government? And she said, no, I'm American, I have allegiance to the United States, not to Israel. And so we have later on then twisting this whole thing, and how everyone went freaked out that she dared say anything about APEC, which just proved APEC has power in the first place. And it's crazy, because all she said was that APEC pays off the politicians and then the politicians pass pro-Israeli legislature to support Israel and give more aid to Israel and turn a blind eye to what Israel does, and it's a fact. Everybody knows that. And of course there's people online that say, well, they don't give any money to the politicians. No, they give money to the PACs, they give money to the politicians to do the bidding for the Israeli. And this is Israel. This is not, no one said anything about Jews. And she was saying that the politicians are expected to have this loyalty. And then later on, first of all, they tried to say just the fact that she criticized Israel was anti-Semitic. So then but people weren't buying that, so then, okay. So the next thing is they somehow spun the Benjamins, and I said a million articles where it's in parentheses that somehow that's anti-Semitic. And as far as I know, there's not this. I didn't think that Jews had a monopoly on the name Benjamin. I don't know any Jewish people, but even on TV and movies and stuff, I didn't think there were a million Benjamins. I know a lot of Benjamins, whatever, that weren't Jewish, and especially even in the media, the only person in Israel or whatever named Benjamin is Benjamin Netanyahu, and it has no reference to that. Everybody, even the people that are using this against her, know that the Benjamins means Benjamin Franklin, and it doesn't. Their thing doesn't even make sense. Okay, so Now let's go further. So that no one was buying that either. So then they twisted her thing where she said, "What we live in a country where what kind of influence do these people have? Does this do these lobbies have? Where I'm forced to politicians." She said me and politicians in general are forced to have allegiance, or where they say it's okay to push somebody to have allegiance for a foreign country. And they twisted and said that she said that people having a dual allegiance is wrong, and then twisted and said that she's saying that you can't trust Jewish people because they have allegiance to Israel. First of all, from what I understand, from what I look, is the majority of Jewish people in America do not support Israel in the first place. But that's a whole other story, because all they're doing is twisting and turning her words and turning it that, and they're doing it on purpose. They're doing it because of who she is. They're doing it because she's a Muslim, because she was born in a foreign country, and because she's a woman, and because she's in power. Because there's all these white Republicans that have done nothing but say actual anti-Semitic things. Oh, but they supported Israel. Oh, well, yeah, because that saved them in the politics. But they sit there and they say real racist things and really anti-Semitic things. And it got to the point that even the Democrats were trying to sell Ilhan Omar out, that they were voting on a thing that will on legislation to for when they're in Congress, where they can't say anything that's anti-Semitic, and then to throw it in there to make it look like they weren't singling her out, and they claimed they weren't, but everyone knows they're, well, no, nothing that's Islamophobic either. Oh, to make it look like they're not singling her out. Well, and they said things like she said, talking about dual allegiance is anti-Semitic. Well, first of all, she said nothing about dual allegiance. She said nothing anti-Semitic. She said, why is it okay for this country to push somebody, meaning me, meaning her, to have allegiance to a foreign government? And why is it okay? And this is what I want to ask. This is the question that people need to ask. This is the United States. Why? Why is it okay for me, you, everybody, to criticize our own government, but we're not allowed to criticize the government of another country, a country on the other side of the world? Why are we not allowed to criticize Israel? It's not undue criticism. Why are we not allowed to criticize a country that is committing acts of genocide, a country that went to a land that people that went to a land that wasn't theirs, and were given land that wasn't theirs, and nobody ever considered the people that were there to begin with? And nobody can say anything, and especially if they're a person of color and they're the wrong religion, well, they're not allowed to say anything about it. Oh, you can say anything anti-Semitic and racist as you want, just as long as you don't criticize Israel, because all these white guys are getting away with it. But, oh, they're pro-Israel because they know if you say anything to criticize them or not support them, that's a death blow to your career. Now, let's have this conversation. Let's have a conversation of why is it not okay. Let's have a deeper conversation of why are we even supporting Israel? Who are the people that run these groups that support Israel? They're the Christian groups. It's all based on religion, and once again, this is where it's a violation of the First Amendment, the Establishment Clause, and this is a firm violation of the separation of church and state, that we're throwing out freaking rule of law to follow people and to support a country simply because the religious people want us to. And they're not even they don't even know what's going on over there. They're basing something on a book from a million years ago or whatever that was talking about a completely different nation in the same area they're at now. They weren't even the same people. The people that are now that run things are the majority of them, well, at least the people that started the state of Israel, which started from Jewish settlers from Europe back in the 30s. This is what happened: is the white European Ashkenazi Jews of Europe started fleeing Europe when the Nazis started taking over, and they started migrating to Palestine, Israel, whatever you want to call it, when under the British mandate. And they went there, and basically they went to I'm not going to give you a whole thing, but they went over there to a country that wasn't their own, and no one ever took consideration about the people that were there. And now we're here where we can't even criticize them. You really think this person's anti-Semitic? Because so far we have someone like Bernie Sanders, who is a Jewish American, who's saying no, what she's saying is not anti-Semitic. I watched a clip from Young Turks where he's talking to some political expert woman who is Jewish, and she's saying that if you actually listen to what she said, because she was there to hear it, or you read what she actually said instead of what these people are saying she said nothing anti-Semitic. And they're just twisting this and turning it. And you know, that's something, this shows more about the Islamophobia that's in this country, and this fear of people of color and this fear of foreigners. But she's as American as you and me, just because she was born in another country and came over here as a kid. Excuse my language. I try not to cuss so much, but she came here and she's been here a long time. She's been here most of her life, so that makes her American to me. And it's stuff like this that really gets to me, because they have this fake outrage over this fake anti-Semitism. No, criticism of Israel is not anti-Semitic, and for them to go and dive into this and try to make it into something anti-Semitic, to try to lie about it and twist it and turn it to make it like it's anti-Semitic, it's not only wrong, and it's not only wrong to her, but it's wrong to Jews who have been abused and treated bad under anti-Semitism, because there's actually anti-Semitism going on, and it's a hell of a lot more than just criticizing Israel and just criticizing the Jewish lobby, because you've got to understand there's a lot of Jews in this country that don't support the Jewish lobby. There's a lot of Jews in this country that don't support Israel, and most of us I don't like the things that Israel is doing. I do not support Israel. But I have no problem with Jews. I don't know any Jews, but if I did, I wouldn't have any problem with them unless they were just jerks to me. Why would I? They're people like everyone else. But when you have a government that's committing genocide on the people, no, I'm not going to support them. I'm not going to approve of them. No, I don't put up with that crap. I don't care who you are. And to say you can't criticize that's just crazy. And it makes no sense. I thought, how is it okay for me to criticize my own government but not a foreign government? And this thing of crucifying someone, and even the Democrats just hung her out to dry. But anytime something like this happens and they have this fake anti-Semitism, they're watering stuff down and they're making it look like they're basically cheapening real anti-Semitism. They're cheapening it, and then when real anti-Semitism happens, people are like, oh, well, that's not anti-Semitism, because they always call everything anti-Semitism. And it's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. And of all the white men who have gotten away with actual anti-Semitic remarks, and then you have a foreign black Muslim woman who did not say anything anti-Semitic, just was critical about the right-wing government of Israel and being goal of the lobby that's trying to force her to swear allegiance or loyalty to a foreign country to be on some foreign affairs committee. Last thing I checked, the Constitution says something about having loyalty to a foreign country, and I believe there's a word for it, and it's called treason. So why are we pushing people and encouraging people to commit something that's considered treason in the Constitution? And then you're going to twist it around and saying that she's saying that Jews can't be loyal to America. No, really, because all the Republicans who've been saying stuff about Muslims have been saying that Muslims, simply because of believing in Islam, can't be loyal to the United States. So they're twisting it and turning it and saying, see, they're bad, they're bad, they're bad. And it's just crap. It's fake. When I talk about fake news, fake news, fake news, I'm Donald Trump and it's fake news. Well, this is fake news. Okay, well, that's all for now. See you next time on Chris Speaks.